Cortisol is not bad. Cortisol is a good hormone if it is in the right levels at the right time. When it gets out of sync, when it gets dysregulated, what will happen is people will start their day and cortisol will be blunted. It'll be lower, and then it starts to elevate because our body realizes that it's not there, and it stays elevated into the evening. And now what happens is we don't get good sleep. Our blood sugar gets dysregulated. Our inflammation goes up. Hey everyone, Derrick Hines here. Welcome to the podcast where I'll share with you the patterns, insights, research, and technologies that we use in my own pain and performance practice to help people improve their health, speed their healing, and increase their longevity. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. I had gotten a lot of questions recently on something that I wrote about the cortisol cycle, and I thought that would be something that we spend a little bit of time breaking down and giving you some things that you can do to help reset that cycle. So for a lot of people, just to give you the kind of 30,000 foot view, cortisol is not bad. I know it gets kind of lambasted in our current kind of online stratosphere of people like just hating on cortisol. Cortisol is a good hormone if it is in the right levels at the right time. So when we look at a typical day, a healthy cortisol curve typically starts to peak about 30 to 45 minutes after we wake up. This is kind of the cortisol awakening response. And then it starts to gradually decline throughout the day, getting to its lowest at night. When it gets out of sync, when it gets dysregulated, what will happen is people will start their day and cortisol will be blunted. It'll be lower, and then it starts to elevate because our body realizes that it's not there, and it stays elevated into the evening. And now what happens is we don't get good sleep. Our blood sugar gets dysregulated. Our inflammation goes up. And what happens? That cycle continues to get repeated throughout the days and weeks. And we don't know why we feel like I can't sleep. I'm tired all the time. I'm dependent on medication and caffeine to function. And we get stuck in this cycle. And I've had patients who are like, I cannot start to shut down until like 2 or 3 at night, and I'm sleeping till noon, and I'm tired all the time. I've seen this drag out for years. I really have. And when you look at this, this is a dysfunctional cortisol cycle that we have some control over. So when we see these things and we have this collection of symptoms, we need to start to reset our cortisol cycle. There's a few ways to encourage a very healthy cycle. The first one is with morning light. Within the first 30 minutes of waking, ideally, depending on time of year. But when light hits our retina, that we have something called your SCN, your suprachiasmatic nucleus. So light hits the retina, and this starts to increase that cortisol very early on in the day. So this starts to reset your curve. Morning light exposure does a really good job of that. If it's natural light, that's great. There's times where it's not, right? There's times where we have to cheat the system. And in these situations, there's devices out there. There's these like really powerful kind of morning lights that we'll link to in this that I've had a lot of patients use to start to reset this. As you start to get into the rhythm of adding that morning light, we start to notice that our hormones seem to like function better. We stay in balance better. And that's not just like, oh, hey, I'm doing like, this sunlight grounding experiment. This is actual physiology that's changing there. Movement is another way very early on that we can start to increase cortisol in that first block of time in the day. So even like 5 or 10 minutes of exercise or movement early in the morning starts to increase cortisol. So it kind of encourages that early peak. It improves, obviously, you get other improvements. Our insulin sensitivity improves. We get kind of an increased dopamine very early, which all starts to feed into a better circadian rhythm and hormone regulation. So exercise influences this very strongly. There's been a bunch of studies that have looked at that. I think this is one of the reasons why early morning exercisers get addicted to it. And the research says that they stay more consistent throughout the year, not just because it's like, oh, I have control of my morning time and I can do that regularly, but because it gives them this like natural cortisol cycle. They wake up, whether you go to the gym or you're doing this at home, you go, typically we have lights, we're moving, we're doing everything to create this early cortisol spike so that we get this natural, healthy cortisol cycle. So I have personally moved my exercise routine to the early morning and felt dramatically better from like a sleep perspective, an energy perspective than I have really ever. And I think this is why that happens, is that we're combining two very helpful things to reset that cortisol cycle. I remember being at a research summit years and years ago. This was probably 2017, almost a decade ago. And there was a bunch of world-renowned doctors, and one of these doctors got up and talked about the value of a morning and evening sunrise or sun gazing routine. And he went through case studies of like these incredible changes that happen. And he talked about differences that this creates in terms of hormone balance, inflammatory markers, cellular health. And I think it's just one of these health multipliers, as we've talked about on the show. If you can reset that cortisol cycle, there's so many downstream positives to it that it starts to look like this miraculous thing. Like it's like, man, people have better energy, people are eating better, they have less inflammation, they're healing, all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, you're just putting the body back in rhythm that it's supposed to live in. So of course it's going to make all these positive changes. So when we look at this, what we're trying to do with it is reduce bright light, kind of bring that down. So after sunset, lowering the lights in your house and having just like lamps being on. One of the things that this happens is it stops stimulating cortisol production. Moving your workouts, even if you can't do early morning workouts, moving your workouts earlier, like right whenever you get off of work or earlier in the evening, or changing what those look like, changing the intensity of that workout if it has to be on your evenings, stops you from spiking that cortisol at the end of the day. Meal timing matters with this stuff. People who eat later get this cortisol spike, and that's one of the reasons that it affects sleep so negatively, is these late meals. I am one of the most challenging on this because my whole life we ate late. I mean, it was not uncommon for us to eat dinner at 9 p.m. and then, your cortisol stays elevated and it has to come down, and no wonder you're not ready for bed until, midnight or 1 a.m. And then avoiding devices that are designed to create stress responses. I don't care where you're at on the science or political realm, going into that information in the evening that kind of gets you aggravated and frustrated is the worst thing you can do for your health. You're not doing anything good by going and consuming that information. If you're going to do that, do it in the morning, right? If you need to go read the comments of, the videos or the person you're mad at or the opposite party or the opposite belief spectrum, whatever it is, do it in the morning. Let's spike that cortisol early. No, I'm just kidding with that, but I see it all the time. People get in bed, they start scrolling, they're reading these things, and they're like, that's bull, that's aggravating. And we just don't realize how much we are negatively affecting our cortisol rhythm. And once it gets out, unless you do this intentionally for a period of time to truly reset it, it can drag on for a very long time and have very deep implications for you. So when we're working on kind of resetting cortisol, the first thing is morning stuff. So get sunlight, hydrate, and do some form of movement. I'm not saying you have to exercise, but you got to move. That might be walking. That might be doing some squats, doing push-ups, doing kettlebell swings. That might be, getting outside and, walking laps around the yard. It doesn't really matter what it is. If you're not a morning exerciser, do 5 to 10 minutes of a walk in the morning, fairly brisk, right? We need to get the heart pumping to increase cortisol. Midday, I would say, have a good protein meal and minimize glucose, right? We don't want a heavy glucose meal from midday on, because we are going to elevate blood glucose. We're going to start to create some changes, and we're going to see a slower decline of cortisol. And then in the evening, in a perfect situation, you see sunset. There's a lot of value with that. See sunset, and then dim the lights throughout the whole house. This isn't like just on computer screens or anything. Dim the lights throughout your whole house. And if you do have to be on a computer or something, use blue blocking glasses. But ideally, everything kind of gets dimmed. I like some version of a wind down routine. So like the last hour of your day, we should really start to kind of slow everything down, slow our activity down, slow our thinking down. If we need to journal and get a bunch of those thoughts out, that's really helpful. We call that mind dump journaling. Just get everything in your brain out, and it just feels like you can poof. Okay. A hot bath or like an Epsom salt soak does a really good job of this. Breath work is a great thing in the evening. Slow that down. And you're going to notice that if you repeat this kind of 3-step, optimize your morning, go through midday, get a good protein meal, modify glucose, evening, dim the lights, wind down, slow down. Within a few days, you're going to start to feel quite a difference in how you feel when you wake up. You're going to feel a difference in your energy level. And over time, if we were measuring your cortisol, we would start to see you get back into this normal cortisol rhythm. And that improves so many things, from health, energy, healing, function, and hormone management, happiness. All of it follows. So I hope that helps. If you felt fatigued, if you know somebody who has a lot of trouble sleeping, this is real tactical, scientific-based actions. Don't make cortisol the enemy. Actually use cortisol to be your friend and help boost some of these things. So I hope that helps. I know a lot of you had questions about kind of resetting your cortisol cycle. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Remember, do one thing today to get a little bit healthier. Today, that might be an earlier dinner with some dim lights. Have a great day, everybody.